Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Taco Society Presents. Last couple shows we've been on the road, we've had some remotes, and we've got another one for you tonight. But this one's going to be a little different. It's going to be about me. About 5-6 weeks ago, I was at a book fair in Auburn, New Hampshire, Griffin Free Library, and I was invited by Dan Chesney to participate with, I think it was about 8-9 other authors. And a woman walked in, and she talked to each one of the authors and had a little back and forth discussion with them. It turns out her name was Ela Ramsey, and she works for WTPL, which is a radio station in Bow, New Hampshire. Their frequency is 107.7. And she wound up asking myself and another member of our writers group, Bob Perot, if we would like to be interviewed on the radio. I was more than happy to. It gives me a chance to continue to promote myself and to promote my book, The Seeds of Nightmare. And what you're going to see tonight is the interview. Our director, our studio director, Dave Suter, came along. He wanted to take some pictures for the promotion for the show, and he asked if he could film it, and they said yes. So tonight, you're going to see an interview with me. So I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see what happens. Thank you very much.
First, live radio. But I think he's seeing how much fun it is. So I want to welcome Goffstown writer Tony Tremblay to Kale and Company on WTPL FM 107.7. Hello, Tony.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. I met Tony Tremblay at an author event.
In Auburn.
In Auburn at the Gale Public or Free Library. And I was just looking at the cover of his book. I thought, this looks kind of interesting. And I thought, you've got to come on Kale and Company because we love interesting, in quotes, people on this show. And Ken always likes to support local talent. So I guess I've read, I think, all the stories in this collection of short stories. This is your first,
It's the first
bound collection?
Correct, yes. All these stories have been published, well, not all of them, but most of them have been published previously. And this is my chance to put them all together and go to a press and say, hey, you guys want to publish it? And they said yes.
I like how you put little kind of background biographies with each story so we can understand like your process and how these stories came to be. Some of them you were, I'm trying to remember which one it was. Oh, the man in the bar. You just had like the ending. Yeah, you had the ending first, like kept nagging in your brain, and then you wrote that scene, that first scene, and then the story expanded. Is that how it works for you usually?
Just to fill you in on the story, it's about a man who is out in the middle of a snowstorm and he's killing somebody. He's knifing him to death. He cuts the guy's throat.
There's a family show now.
Yeah, well, I'll be careful.
Okay.
And when he's done the deed, he finds himself in the middle of this blizzard with just a regular pair of pants and a coat on because he didn't think too far ahead before he went out and killed the man. So he starts walking and he loses sense of direction, and he sees a light and he follows the light and he gets into a bar. And once he's inside the bar, he sees it's empty except for one man sitting away at the far corner. So he goes inside, and the bartender seems to know him. So he and the bartender are having this conversation. They go back and forth, and as the story goes on, we discover why he was killing the man out in the snowstorm, who the bartender is, and obviously who the man at the end of the bar is. And there is a twist to the ending, like you said, which makes the whole story kind of fun. And when I wrote something new, many times when I write a story, I have no idea what I'm going to write. I'll sit down at the typewriter or the keyboard, and I'll start typing a paragraph. It could be a scene I have in mind or something I thought of on the way to work that morning. And something new literally started out with just a scene of a man out in a snowstorm killing another man. And as I got to writing, all the different plot elements came to me. And I didn't know how it was going to end until I got to the end of the story.
Wow.
So that's one of the stories that took over. I had almost no input. I just let it flow through me and I typed.
Now we've had a couple authors on the show. I had interviewed Jennifer Keniston, who wrote a really interesting novel, kind of autobiographical, After You.
Oh, yes, I've heard of it, yes.
But
Yeah.
I wonder, it's like these characters must come back and say, either to Jennifer or to you and say, Tony, we're still here, Tony. When are you gonna finish our life? I mean, are they just out there in the ether and they call your name once in a while?
Well, it's funny. A lot of my characters come to me at the spur of the moment. I mean,
But do they come back?
But well, it's funny you say that because I always swore I'd never write a sequel to a story.
Yeah.
But I wrote one story, and it's in the collection. It's called The Pawn Shop. And in the pawn shop, there's a pawn shop and a pawn shop owner, but he has this guardian, if you want to call him that, who's a giant man named Rex, and the man has to weigh 450, 500 pounds. He's just huge. And he takes care of the pawn shop when people try to break in or some dastardly things happen. And I had such positive feedback from so many people on the pawn shop and this character that I've actually have brought him back for other stories.
Good.
2 of them which will be published this summer.
Well, you've got stuff in the pipeline for sure. And I want to, this makes me think I need some comfort food talking about scary stories. So what could be more comforting than an ice cream cake from Arnie's? So you've got 1 more minute to give us a call? Nope, Jay says the gate has closed. Okay, so he has, I have a different, my clock is 15 seconds slow. So, we have to so we got 3 qualifiers for who takes the cake, so thank you all for calling in. I'm speaking with Tony Tremblay. He's a New Hampshire writer, and we were just talking about like his creative process. He's published a bound collection of stories called The Seeds of Nightmares, which is just a terrific collection of stories. I read it all in one go. And I invited him to come on a little bit early before his 3:30 slot because he's just got so much to talk about. But we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Tony Tremblay. And I think we'll talk about his TV show, too, that you might be able to see this segment on. He has a regular TV show on Goffstown Access Television. So all of that and more when we come back from a break here on The Pulse.
How is it so far?
It seems fine.
Does it?
I mean,
Okay.
I usually, whenever I bring someone on before their segment, I always, it's a little bit awkward because I don't want to get into the meat of the conversation, but I just want to like bring you in because you're sitting there.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm glad you did. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's such great fun. And we won't mention TT Zuma. So let me go. Okay. Because you read so much about how people write. I watched this great interview with Irving.
Yeah, John Irving.
John Irving.
Yeah.
He was on some PBS thing. And I try to be, I'm learning to be a storyteller. And
A noble profession, by the way.
And perform. Like I would want to perform.
You want to speak, yes.
Yeah. But he was talking about he always has to know the voice of his character that's going to be in the ending, and what their voice will be at the ending, and not to get there too soon. Like to be very much aware that that's how he wants the story to end, with that tone or whatever you would, I don't know how you would describe it technically, but be careful you don't get there too fast. I thought, as a storyteller, you've got to, that's something
probably
you need to
more
do.
important than actually than the written word, but yeah. I have a good friend, Steve Vernon, who's an author, and he makes his quite a bit of his living storytelling. He's up in Canada, and he goes to different schools, different outlets, different venues, and it's all spoken word. And he's fantastic. It takes years to develop that, though. Timing, voice, timbre.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on. I'm part of the Storytelling Alliance here in Hampshire.
Oh,
And,
I didn't know there was one. Great.
Yeah, there's like 3 or 4 regular groups that meet to like practice.
Oh, good.
And then we're having a big event in September, like a 3-day event up in Waterville Valley.
That's perfect for you on the radio, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm such a ham. Are you kidding? I love this stuff. I get very nervous.
It's obvious you do.
I get very nervous, though. But
You do?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that excited
Excited, okay.
about it. And I try to prep, and Ken's like, don't, it'll be what it is, just let it flow. It's like, no, you can't just let it flow. This is the man you need to keep on the good side of. He controls the mic, he controls everything.
3 p.m. weather.
Yes, 3:30. And this is the 3, okay.
Yep.
How'd it go?
Is it okay?
Yeah, it's still rolling, by the way.
Oh, it is?
Oh.
Oh, okay.
It's good stuff.
But if you could send me I don't know if you're able to send me some of the photos,
Yeah,
that would be
I will.
terrific.
Sure, and this is also available on YouTube. So
Well, I'm bringing you up, no, so you go, okay, because I've got to learn, the one thing I don't do is self-promotion on social media, which I need to learn to do.
Absolutely.
So I'm trying to learn from people like you, Steve Priest. You know, I met a woman yesterday who's sold me a car, and in her real life, she is a acoustic guitar singer. And you go on her website, it's like, oh my gosh, this woman, it's so professional.
Good for her.
It's amazing. It's like, I need you to mentor me how to do this. So here you are. I love your background. How did you get that background?
That's that man right there, David.
God,
Yeah.
that's
It's a virtual background.
okay.
It's a green screen.
Oh, okay, because I've dabbled in TV with the Nashua Cable Access, and we struggled with the backgrounds and how you move the camera, and the background stays the same, but the people change shape. You know? So,
It's a lot of fun. Dave does a great job directing the show. I'm not supposed to say producing, but directing the show.
I learned how to use the switcher, that's about it. But a lot of people here have YouTubes that people have. Good afternoon, WTPL listeners, 107.7 FM, The Pulse. This is Ella the Pearl Monroe, sitting in for Ken Kill with you till 5 o'clock today. I have no news of any kind of mishaps on the highways because you know Jay the dog Arsenal would step in with breaking news if there was something of import for you to know. So in the meantime, we're gonna refresh our weather report because that is something everybody needs to know. I know my husband reads the weather report every morning and the water table. He checks the water table every day. Yes, he's a nerd. Yes, and we love him. But in Concord, it is still a balmy 85. Laconia is a much better spot on the beautiful water with 77 degrees. Manchester's gone up a little bit to 86. So if you're sitting in traffic in 86 degrees, you have my sympathy. And that weather report is brought to you by our friends at R&T Electric. Since 1972, your home for all your electric and generator needs. And remember, you can always head out on this gorgeous day to Murray Farm Greenhouse at 115 River Road in Pennacook. And they have a great selection of plants and everything you need to make your yard and your home lovely. They've been doing it for 52 years, so there's nothing you can go to them and looking for that they won't be able to help you find or give you some good advice. Go on Facebook at Murray Greenhouse, drop by 115 River Road in Pennacook, or give them an old-fashioned phone call, 753-6781, Murray Farm. We've closed our Who Takes the Cake qualifying names. We had 3 great people who qualified in. Tom Raffio will pull that name, that winning lucky name, for a 6-inch ice cream cake from Arnie's Place tomorrow at 3:30. So be tuned if you want to know who won. And I'm trying to sound mysterious because we have in studio, we had a sneak peek a little bit ago, but in studio now officially, and being videotaped, I should say, so this is exciting. We have Tony Tremblay. Do you have a brother or a good friend named Tom?
I don't.
Because you have been Tom Tremblay since I met you, and now it's Tony. So I'm getting used to Tony Tremblay. And you have a pseudonym that some people may know you, that you've written under in the past, or is that person?
No, that's T.T. Zoomer. And most of these stories were published when they first came out under the T.T. Zoomer pseudonym. Now I put everything together in the collection under my real name, Tony Tremblay.
So before we get into more of these stories, and which were just, like I had said before, I read this whole volume of about 10 stories. Is it 10 stories?
No, it's 13.
13?
Yeah.
In an evening, while it was still daylight.
Thank you.
In an evening, it was just I just wanted to know what happened to all these people. But what prompted you to go from a pseudonym to using your actual legal name?
When I first started writing, and believe it or not, I'm in my 60s, and I only started writing about 7 years ago.
Get out.
No, I just decided to do it, and I attended a writers group at the Goffstown Library. It's called the Blank Page.
Yes.
And I sat down with them and really liked that first meeting and kept going until I decided to write something on my own. I presented it to them, and they gave me the encouragement I needed, and I haven't stopped since.
Wow, well that gives me hope, because I have things squirreled away in a desk drawer.
Dig 'em
or
out.
in a box in the attic. It's like, oh gosh, nobody would want to read this, but I'm convinced you have to start writing from yourself. Something in you has got to want to get it out on the page. Or we were saying earlier, characters visit you. Characters kind of come into your brain and kind of bang at the side of your skull saying, Tony, let me out of here. Does that happen?
Sometimes they do. More often than not, no, it's a scene. I'll see something in my head. We talked about Maddie earlier. I think we talked about Maddie earlier.
We did, you and I did, but it's a
Okay.
great story and it has a good title. The Strange Saga of Maddie Dyer.
Yeah, and a little background on Maddie. It's a weird Western. It happens in the 1880s.
Yeah.
And I had this vision of this very typical, almost stereotypical pioneer woman out on the farm, feeding the pigs, taking care of the horses or whatever. And she sees something on the ground, and it turns out to be a hole. And she's looking at it,
You think it's a hole?
Well, she thinks it's a well. First, she thinks it's a piece of wood. Or
Yeah, it's like, I can tell you it ain't a hole.
But as she gets closer, she realizes that it's this black round circle that she thinks is a hole. And I had an image in my mind of this woman, this pioneer woman, walking up and sticking her hand in the hole. And it's completely black, so as she puts her hand in, obviously you can't see it below the surface. And something grabs her.
Yeah, it's like, never put your hand in something you don't know what it is. I'm yelling at this woman on the page. It's like, don't do that, you foolish woman.
And what happens is terrible. It's awful.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And that was the fun part of writing.
Oh.
You get a scene in your head, and then you just keep going, and then you write it out.
Oh my gosh, and that's the longest of the. It's like a novella.
That's the novella, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the other short stories, I liked them because even though that's a misnomer, I think, because sometimes people think a short story doesn't have the depth.
Oh, they
of
can
a
be
longer
more powerful.
piece.
Yeah, absolutely. They can be more powerful than a longer work.
Now, with some of this is called what's flash fiction. What is flash fiction? As an aside.
None of these are flash fiction, to me anyways, and to most people. Flash fiction is under 800 words.
Okay.
Sometimes it goes to 1,000. It can be as little as 100 words.
Yeah.
I think the shortest of my stories is 1,800 words.
Wow.
Yeah, and off the top of my head, I can't remember. It's the name of it right now. It's the one with the man that whose wife, he kills his wife, and then he's in bed and he sees the dress on his bed, and
Yes.
something happens to him.
Oh yeah, and that's about everybody. Something happens to everybody in this collection of stories. But I know you have a television program, and you talk about the different styles of fiction. And maybe before we, flash fiction, short story, novella, novel. But before we go any further, I have to remind people that I'm talking to Tony Tremblay. He's an author from New Hampshire, part of the Blank Page Writers Group that we mentioned on Tuesday's show. And this is Ella Monroe sitting in for Ken Kale till 5 o'clock here on 107.7 The Pulse. But Tony, describe for me how do you describe your writing, the genre, the tone? What would people expect to read if they picked up one of your books and didn't see the
cover?
The very I wouldn't say scary, but it draws you in. It puts a chill on your spine. The cover.
The cover was designed by David Dodd, who's an editor at Crossroad Press, and I asked Dave if he could come up with a cover of two hands coming out of a hole, because I wanted everything to focus on Maddie, because that's the newest story, and it's the novella that anchors the collection. It's kind of cool. It's got that orange and yellowish.
Like that 80s kind of
80
look.
I wanted to
Yeah.
be, yeah, I wanted the cover to look a little like the early 80s horror covers that were garish, and they were a lot of fun to look at. And, you know, you looked at them, you may laugh or you wouldn't necessarily be scared, but they got their point across, that it was a horror novel. And you asked me what kind of fiction I write. I do consider myself a horror novel, but I also write a lot of noir, which is crime fiction.
Okay, like
and
the movies and
The old black and white movies, sure.
Yeah, and the dime novels of Mickey Spillane
That
and
type
all
of
of those
thing, yeah.
people. Okay.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
frequently mix the two together. As in The Black Dress, which is the story I couldn't remember the name of a few minutes ago. That one and something new, and there's a few other ones that have some noir elements to them, and I enjoy that. I enjoy writing both.
Okay, because horror, I don't know, I mean, there's like a lot of people, you know, read Stephen King. And, or they hear the name,
Who?
they, yeah, who? Robert Bachman, I think, yeah, is his pseudonym,
Richard.
a pseudonym. And they think, oh, I don't read that, And I did for years till someone gave me The Stand, which he wrote in the 80s. And I just skipped over the bits that were too scary for me to read. And it was this great novel. I mean, it's like 1,500 pages. And I read it over a summer, and I thought, and then someone else gave me a collection of his short stories. And yeah, they kind of put a chill in your spine a little bit.
But that's fun.
But yeah, it was like riding a roller coaster.
Exactly, you like that.
So how do you, and I thought, God, this guy's got a bad rap. This is great stuff. I just wouldn't read it at night alone in an old house. So why, how do you get around people who would just stop at the genre horror? Oh, I don't read horror, or don't know what it is. How do you encourage them to get past the cover or get past that label?
Well, you obviously ask them. There's nothing else you can do. People, if they don't want to read horror, they're not going to read horror. So what you do is you write for people that do.
Okay.
And that's basically what I do. I do write most of my stories, not all of them, but most of them are centered in New Hampshire, Goffstown specifically, because that's
Yes,
where I live.
that one, oh, the old man.
Yeah, on the bridge.
That's on the bridge, and
Yeah.
you know, to me, that's not far from horror. That's more like
That's
the
more
noir.
exactly.
You know, it's like, okay, I can read him. This stuff isn't scary. You know, and as I'm getting along, and then I get to Maddie, it's like, ooh, okay, now it's getting scary.
Yeah.
Which I guess is a compliment.
It
You
is.
want me to be scared.
I do want you.
But keep reading.
I want you to be uneasy. It's
Okay.
hard to scare people nowadays because I mean Stephen King's been around forever and he's pretty much the master at scaring people. And there's a few others that Peter Straub. I mean I could go on. And you can't really, at least I can't compete with those kind of people. Those writers, I should say. So I just do the best I can.
Yeah, and I wouldn't think, I mean, it just jumped on my brain because I'm looking at an advertisement for the blank page that's on one of your websites, and I wouldn't think that he'd, what's that idea of competition? I wouldn't think Stephen King would want you to say to you, oh, Tony Tremblay, don't you write your stuff, because you never can have the popularity I've had.
He's just the opposite.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would think he'd be like, oh my gosh, Tony, send me a copy of The Seeds of Nightmares.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, oh my gosh.
I'm a member of the New England Horror Writers Association,
Yeah.
and there's a whole bunch of us, a lot of New Hampshire authors, but a lot of authors off from all over New England. And you know, as an organization, we encourage each other. We all get happy when somebody publishes a story or when somebody comes out with a new book. We're all extremely encouraging, and that's what the Taco Society Presents TV show's about.
Yes, and that's on YouTube.
And that's on YouTube also. You can look it up under the Taco Society Presents. But we're there to promote New England horror writers. And we go outside of New England sometimes. We actually went to Virginia a little while ago and talked to some Virginia horror authors. But yeah, I mean, that's what the TV show's about with Sidney Lee and Phil Perrone, who are my two co-hosts. We sit and we talk to authors. We ask, same thing you're doing with me. We ask them about their writing style, how do they come up with their ideas.
And they read excerpts. I know you do some excerpts.
They do. They read excerpts. And the whole point of the show is to promote horror and to promote these authors. And I have a ball doing it. The producer, Dave Suter, or the director, I should say, should call producer.
And he's the director.
Yeah, he does a great job in putting the show together, and it's just a lot of fun. Much like you, I get just as excited doing my show as you
Oh,
doing yours.
good, because it comes across the screen, and that's taco as in like a beef taco,
Yeah.
Taco.
Yeah.
Society
yeah.
presents,
Mhm.
and you just put that into your YouTube search, and you'll find all the episodes.
And you want to know why it's called the Taco Society?
Well, our time is so precious. If you can tell me, like in 30 seconds.
There's a book called Ghost Story by Peter Straub, and it's
Oh my gosh, yes,
Yes.
the scary with the. I always look at my rearview window,
the woman in the
mirror, and
back.
I can see the mirror looking. Oh gosh, it's scary.
the four old men in that
Oh.
book or that movie, whichever you happen
Yeah.
to see or read, called the Chowder Society.
Okay.
And we took our name as a takeoff on the Chowder Society.
Okay, so there is a link there.
There is a link to horror.
Now, is there something about Peter Straub's writing that resonates with you?
Oh, he's a phenomenal writer, and he's one of my favorite writers since I say I was a little kid. I'm too old to be a little kid, I think.
No.
But I've been reading horror since I was a young kid, 10, 12 years old. So-
Now, okay, so did you have trouble getting that out of your public library, or did people try to like say, "Oh, put that trash away, read some Dickens, read some Gaskell,
They said all
read some
those things.
Tolstoy"?
They said all those things. I was very fortunate. I had an English teacher in high school that encouraged me to read what I wanted to read and write. I didn't write horror back then, but I wrote some comedy type things. And the classics. I won't say he didn't tell me to read those, but that's where I got my love of reading, which
And
eventually,
that's key.
to be a good writer, you got to be a good reader.
Yes.
And I mean, everybody says that, but it's absolutely true.
I think with Stephen King, you have to love sentences.
Gotta love the written word.
Yeah, just-
everything about it.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing, and just the more you read, you get ideas, and this whole idea, and I wish we didn't have to go for a break, and I think depending on which clock I look at, I think I have to go to a break now. But when we come back, I wanted to ask you for a few minutes the idea of fan fiction, and what experience, maybe your opinions about that. But we are talking with Tony Tremblay. He's a local author of the horror genre, and this is Ella Monroe sitting in for Ken Kill. So stay with us here on The Pulse. I know I should just come on. Once you get rolling, it's like, oh my gosh, this train is running now.
Is it okay?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's
Yeah, good,
wonderful.
okay.
I'm just sad it's ending, so quickly. But I know when I was in high school, I had written a story, and my English teacher took me aside, and she's like, did you write this? I'm like, yeah.
She didn't believe it?
No. She goes, I think we have an issue of plagiarism
Yeah.
here. And I was like crushed.
That's why I stopped writing.
Yes.
I got accused of the same thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm like, I was crushed, and I wish I could, but now, it was fan fiction. I am like massive, my favorite novel is The Once and Future King by T.H. White.
So
Arthurian legend. So I'm reading this, I'm absorbing it, so I probably took the
Basic
feel
plot,
of
yeah.
it, no, my own character, but kind of pulled it forward into it, like, okay, I could write something like this.
That's what writing is.
It's
there's
fan
very
fiction,
few
yeah.
original plots or ideas anymore.
And I'm like, that woman,
Yeah. Good for
I
you.
was so
Good for you.
like, oh my gosh, that's all over the internet is fan fiction. And even this John Irving guy, he wrote some new book. I don't know. He's written lots of stuff. He's like, oh, that was an homage to some French guy.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if John Irving can write fan fiction, hello. So it's. I think, why did I listen? You can't listen to other people. Maybe we'll have like maybe 3 minutes when we come back. Is there one thing that you want to get across in the 3 minutes that we have versus why the person who told, what made you stop writing for,
No,
40 years?
I do want to talk about not talk about at length, but just let people know I have a new novella coming out in January.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we'll close with that.
Yeah, and that's about it.
Okay. Because I get so carried. This has just been, because one of the problems, I'm sure you have this with your show, is you don't know how someone will be until you have them on.
Exactly.
So it's like you don't want to block an hour, because I've had people on, it's like, oh my gosh, when is this?
I got a half hour to go.
Oh my God.
We've been
And
very
then other
fortunate.
people who's like, oh my gosh, just stay all day. Just stay all day and be part of the conversation. And I try to, be thinking of people, because I always like to have people back. There's no sense having someone on for half an hour. You can barely even, because you get 20 minutes. So that's the problem. You get rolling. It's like,
Then you gotta
oh,
stop.
You gotta stop.
Yeah, if you want me to come back, we'll be more than happy to.
Oh, that's fine, because then I can be on TV too. It's just great stuff, and with YouTube and Access Television, I know two people who use the Dairy Access TV to promote their business, and one is a life coach, and the other one is a wardrobe consulting, stylist, wardrobe consultant / voice singer / soprano, and they both use their Access TV. Hudson is always using their Access TV for shows desperate for content, you know. So that's why I wanted to mention that. It's like, get and see what maybe you too out there in the ether,
Oh, yeah.
you know, could do your own show.
Goffstown TV is always looking for content.
Yeah.
They're always looking for people to come up with their own show. That's how I got started. I came in fact, Dave asked me to sit in on someone else's show, and it turns out the guy, I don't think he wanted horror or wanted to share
Okay.
the
Because you've got Bob Perot on yours. I mean, that's as far as
I love
can-
Bob, yeah.
I was like, Bob Perot's as far from a horror person as I can when you
Oh,
meet
no,
him.
yeah.
You know, it's like, okay.
No, Bob and I, we become fast friends. And I met him through the Blank Page. And you know, we have one big thing in common is we both like to write. We like to write different things,
Right.
but we enjoy talking about writing.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad you're listening on this gorgeous, gorgeous summer day. Ella Monroe sitting in for Kent Kale, and I want to get right into the last few minutes that we have with local author Tony Tremblay. He was kind enough to give me a bound collection of some of his short stories. The Seeds of Nightmares is the name of the, I guess you call it, anthology.
It's a collection, an anthology, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Apple and anywhere you can buy ebooks or regular books.
Oh, okay.
You can get them there.
Well, I would recommend that you do if you want a good tingle up your spine this summer. But while we have a few minutes, what's down the pike for you, publishing-wise?
I've got a couple short stories that are going to be published this summer. Dark Passages 2, and there's another secret one with a lot of really big names in horror that's coming out. I believe sometime in August. It may be September. But some of the biggest names in horror are going to be in it, and me.
Wow.
So I'm the and portion of it, but I'm so happy to be part of it. But the big news is I do have a novella coming out in January with Books and Booze Press. The working title right now is Steel, but I believe it's going to be called The Burning Rains when it comes out.
The burning
The Burning Rains. As in
rain, as in a rain
yeah.
shower,
Yeah.
the burning. Okay, so I'm thinking like steel splashes, that's the idea of the burning
No,
rain.
Steel is the name of the character.
Oh, Steel.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's a woman, a young girl, and her. Every character in the book has a name based on their personality. So we have Steel, who's tough, strong-willed; Fleet, who's fast as can be;
Okay.
Cookie, who likes to eat. There's a.
Okay.
And so on and so forth. So yeah, it's a fun novel. It's super fast-paced. From the first page to the end, it's just all action.
Okay, so we're going to probably hopefully be having you back
I would love
to
to.
talk about your newly published work in the summer, later in the summer. And can you give me just a tease of what the plot is? Or
Yeah, I can. It's the end of the world.
Okay.
And they're not sure what happened. One day this gray rain came, and the gray rain came and pretty much caused all the adults in the country to go crazy. They wound up.
We're not far from there already, Tony. Okay.
And then they would wind up dying because of madness, and all that was left were anybody under the age of about 19, 20 years old. So these young people get together and they're trying to save their lives.
Okay.
But a couple of the things that there's some monsters that they were actually dogs, cats, that type of thing that have turned into.
Because we are talking
Mutants.
horror here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to think, oh my gosh, what is this? Is this, what's so fancy word, dystopia?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Post-apocalyptic dystopia.
Post-apocalyptic dystopia.
It's very scary. It's very frightening, and it's just a great. Here I am, top my own
Yeah,
hole,
of
but it's a
course it
great
is.
story. It's a great story.
Well, it has to be your great story, because why would you put people say writers, you go to you open a vein at the keyboard. Typewriter, I was gonna say typewriter.
If a writer doesn't put everything he has into his writing,
Yeah.
it's not worth publishing. You've got to care about your work. You got to care about your stories. And or The Burning Rain, I cared about. I put my life into it. It's a great book. It's a great story, and other people like it too. So I know I've succeeded.
Well, that's the key. I mean, you have a following. And I mean, I think that kind of affirmation, even though you write for yourself and you love these characters, that maybe not love them all, because some of them are kind of unlovable in some ways, but you have a passion for them.
I do.
And that comes out.
I do. Yeah. Characterization is so important. I'm probably known for that more than anything else in my stories. You talk about, who likes this type of stuff.
Yeah.
My first reader is called Anita, and she's in her 70s. And she loves my stories as bad as they can get horror-wise. She just can't get enough of them. So when you're making people, at both ends of the spectrum happy, I think you're doing a good job.
Because you're touching, what does horror touch?
It's a visceral feeling. It's
I mean, people
something
from 18 to 70, we all have very similar fears,
Absolutely.
basic human fears.
We
that
do.
thing that grabs your shoulder in the dark, and has a claw at the end, and has a green tube coming out the back.
Yeah, that's important, but you also got to care about the people. If somebody gets eaten by a monster or somebody gets stabbed in the back, if you don't care about those characters, you're not interested in the story. He died, who cares? But if you care about the characters, if you fall in love with the characters, you want them to succeed, you want them to get through whatever it is they're going through.
Right.
And that's what's important, and that's what I really strive to do in my stories. I want to make the characters real and make people care for them.
Well, I can tell you, in my humble opinion, that you do that. Now, was there an event or something that someone could just go and meet a lot of horror writers?
There's a lot of places. August 6th at Goffstown Library. There's an event. I'll be at Pandemonium Books in Cambridge, Mass. Next week, I believe, the 14th of July.
Wow.
I'll be at Nikon, which is the third weekend in July. So that's coming up in a week and a half, I guess. And that's in Rhode Island. And then after that, I'll be in Vermont.
So
I've been a lot of places.
I know, I probably should know this, but what can you tell us the best way to find out where you're going to be?
Just go to Facebook, look under Tony Tremblay. I'll be more than happy to friend you, and you can take a look at my schedule there.
All right, so we will end it on that. That's Tony Tremblay, and that's spelled... Oh, I missed it, sorry. Oh, he said goodbye. Yes, yeah.
All set?
Okay, yeah, because
You ran out of time?
I kept seeing 55, and I was supposed to end at 54:30. And he's like, bye, because I'm looking at you, so I don't see him doing this.
Oh, that's fine. That's okay.
Because it's like, this is so much fun.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
I'd rather give you the airtime.
No,
He gets gigged for ads.
no. I completely understand.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and Dave, and you've got all my trash here. So when I come back, I have to recap that I was talking to you.
I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. As we're filming this right now, I had not seen the show, so in all likelihood you're seeing it before I am. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you learned a little bit about me, a little bit about my writing process, and learned a little bit more about my book, The Seeds and Nightmares. We've been doing a few remote shows, as you could tell, in the last couple months, and we're going back to the studio with co-hosts Phil Perrone and Sydney Lee in August. We're filming this mid-July, so we'll be back in about 4 weeks with hopefully some studio guests to entertain you, and we want to thank you very much for watching tonight, and we hope you'll watch us in the future. Thank you very much.